So Steve Mnuchin was making the rounds on Sunday, and he kind of alluded to some things, an answer possibly to questions we all as Americans are wondering right now, when we can leave our houses and get back to some sense of excuse me, normalcy. Um, we're all wondering when we can get out of our houses, when we can go back to our employers and our businesses, when our children, me included, being a college student, when we can get back to brick and mortar studies. And he kind of gave us an indication today. I'm reading from the Daily Wire, Joseph Curl reporting. This is from yesterday. It was breaking news. It says the U.S. lockdown to stem the spread of coronavirus will likely last at least 10 to 12 weeks or until early June. Again, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said Sunday. Appearing on Fox News Sunday, Mnuchin expressed confidence the actions of the Trump administration is taking to shore up the economy. And he said the plans are intended to deal with a 10 to 12 week scenario, adding that they can be extended if need be. So finally, kind of getting, I don't know how concrete that is, but if the government is looking at 10 to 12 weeks as far as stimulus packages go and things of that nature, I think it starts to give us an idea of the direction that we might be heading. So today on the program, I want to leave all the economics to the side, and I want to discuss more of what that 10 to 12 weeks could mean for us moving forward and how we deal with that from a mental health perspective. Just a couple of things I've certainly taken away from just the last week or so. So again, basically, what I want to discuss, what is that 10 to 12 weeks? I mean, geez, that's quite a long time. And what I wanted to discuss was, I've been looking at all this information that we're taking in about, I mean, things are changing day to day. There's a lot of information out there. And the first thing I want to remind you of is it will bury you from a mental health perspective if you continue to laser focus on this stuff every day. And that's very important because I started out, I'm a very informationally driven person. I think in these cases, a lot of people want to be as best informed as possible, but as I found, we got to take a break from this just constant excuse me, constant berating of news. I mean, geez, the news cycle is like, it's by the time you read something that's been published on any type of medium, it might already be outdated information. It's just unbelievable how fast and the fury at which this information we're just being bombarded with. So right at the outset, I want to take a minute to say it's okay to still disconnect from this stuff. We all need to be informed, but I found over the last week or so that I needed to take breaks from just the constant pounding of information that we seem to be getting here. It changes so rapidly that information that you get at 9 o'clock in the morning changes when the coronavirus task force puts out their briefing at like 11:30, and then by 5 o'clock there's new information. So be informed, continue to stay informed, but you got to take healthy breaks from it. And I learned that throughout this week for sure. And the other issue with that, and I'm glad that, I'm hoping that we start to see some actual concrete numbers of just how long we're going to be dealing with this, because frankly, folks, it all just being up in the air right now it's dangerous. We're not built to just, for who knows how long, an indeterminate amount of time, we're just going to have to completely change our whole of society to curb this thing. And it's good if it works, but we need to know how long. I was listening to Ben Shapiro earlier in the week, and he brought up this great parallel with the whole quarantine thing and comparing it to dieting. And he was saying that the most successful diets have very specific like ins and outs. Like, for example, you're going to go hard on your diet for 2 months. And then after those 2 months, you get a week or so to kind of let your guard down, have that cookie, go out and eat and order a meal, whatever you want with no restrictions. But the whole point is that when you take on a diet and it's just, oh, I mean, how many of us have done this? I'm going to change the entire way I live my life as it pertains to food. And there's no, well, when's this going to end? You're just going to do it forever? And if you're doing that from a dieting standpoint, like a weight loss standpoint, it's not going to work because there's no in and out point. And we're not built for this, especially Americans. So again, the better diet or the better response to the COVID-19 thing is if we're going to diet, i.e., social distancing, things are closed, we need to know when it's going to end because we cannot we can't just go on like this without knowing, because eventually people are just going to say, screw this, I'm not doing it, much like they do with their diet and saying like, you know what, another example right here. What if we don't see any results from it? How many people give up on a diet because they don't see results from it and they just say, hell with it, I'm not doing this, it's not doing anything? What if we take all these measures that we're doing right now, and I do believe that they will, and I certainly pray that they do help to flatten this curve and not overburden the healthcare system. But what if the damage is already done? In short order, Americans are going to say, well, the hell with this then, and I'm just going to go out and do whatever anyway. That's why there needs to be constant reassessment, and there needs to be specified end dates. Yeah, well, it doesn't even have to be diets. Anytime you're working towards a goal and you set, it's one of the it's one of the principles of SMART goals, and maybe we'll get into what exactly SMART goals are. I encourage you to look them up. But the T in SMART, it's an acronym when you're developing any kind of a plan to meet a goal. The T in SMART stands for time, and it's very important. That's how much time are you going to do this in, or how much time are you allotting for you to achieve this goal? And right now, that's all up in the air. And if you do not have specified times in which you're planning to achieve certain goals, you're on the short list of failure. And while we're on the topic of all this, what the government's doing right now to intervene and try to slow the spread of this, I gotta take a second to kind of rant a little bit. You didn't think I was going to be all cool, calm, and collected this whole time? No, sir. I've seen a lot of my more right-leaning friends, I would say, what they're doing is not helping. I've seen a lot of my right-leaning or more classical liberal type friends saying that all this stuff is unconstitutional. It's government can't do this. We're letting the government take our right. And let me just be clear, we do need to pay attention. And I've been telling a lot of people that the worst mistake we could make in this moment is to give away our freedoms for temporary feelings of safety. And I think we saw a lot of that in hindsight with post 9/11, the Patriot Act. I don't want to get into it, but I believe that we did give up a lot of our freedoms in the aftermath of 9/11 permanently, I might add, just to feel a little safer. Mass government surveillance, the ability, we're just going to let it go. What I'm talking about is the people out there that seem to think that there is, I would ask these people, is there any legitimate role that the federal government or the state government has to play in any of this? Well, they can't shut down this. They can't do that. I don't care if it's for somebody's protection. You can't. There has to be, we have to agree at some point there is some legitimate role of government, and I would say a pandemic is one of them. And it's really unfortunate that I'm seeing a lot of my right-leaning and like libertarian classical liberal friends, and I know these terms are so muddied and cloudy anymore that it might be difficult. No, I'm not talking about like a liberal, like somebody on the left. I'm talking more about like a classical liberal, individual freedoms type person, least amount of government possible. And I agree with those things, but to take it to this to the extreme and basically say that, to hold this notion that there is absolutely no legitimate there must be no legitimate, why do we have a government at all? I mean, you have to agree at some points that government is there for some necessities, and one of which is to protect people. And again, remember what I was just saying, we need to be cautious, but to hold this idea that the government has no business in any of this, that's just, dare I say, pie in the sky. Because the truth of the matter is and the one thing that we should all be seeing from this is that Americans in general are not taking we are now, but at the early stages, the whole reason the government had to come in and do all these quarantines and what our governor Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania is doing, what you're seeing in California, because Americans would not take it upon themselves to do these things. Therefore, the government had to step in and do them for us. So whose fault is it really that now the government is mandating these things of us? We need to be taking things more upon ourselves. And we should have been doing that from the jump. In listening to these people, you would think that there's no role for government anywhere for any reason. And I'm somebody that is very libertarian in a lot of my views, but I still recognize that there's a place for government. There's still a place for federal government. But in a federalist society that we live in, I like to put the onus on small local government, and then as we go up to the local, then the county, then the state, then the federal government. And yes, one big problem is that the federal government by the day but we're not seeing that really right now. The federal government is not coming in and mandating what we do. In fact, I think President Trump has been doing a great job of saying, hey, listen, I do not intend for the federal government to be. You see it. He's asking the state governors to take on the ordering of things, to get your state's preparedness up, because it should be taking place on a smaller, more localized level. That's what federalism is. That's how our country is built. I mean, you even saw blue check marks earlier last week saying, like, I can't believe President Trump is leaving the states to deal with this. That's literally how our country is built. So, yes, I understand the cautionary tales, but let's not pretend that there's absolutely no need for government in the midst of a a pandemic, the world, but a national crisis such as this. So I will say it again, and I'm going to continue to say it. Stay vigilant so that those types of things that we saw post 9/11 don't happen. But let's not pretend that there's no place for any government intervention in something like this. I mean, that's almost like its own nasty, disgusting form of virtue signaling. Look how libertarian. Look how libertarian I am. I don't think the government should be involved in anything for any reason whatsoever. That's nuts. 2 weeks ago, 2 Thursdays ago was the last time I was in a college setting. I go to a county community college, so students that are in that building as well as faculty come from all over the county. My last day was Thursday, and then 4 days later, I got sick. And I'm certainly not saying I had COVID-19 or coronavirus. I don't know what I had because it could have been a migraine. It could have been the flu. It could have been COVID-19. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that the symptoms vary so greatly. I was talking to a friend of mine that is pretty certain he has it, and he's been in consultation with his doctors and stuff, and he's getting more of the trouble, the labor breathing, those types of things that seem to be a hallmark. But we've also had people that have had like a headache, felt crummy for a little bit, may or may not have had a fever, and then they're back on it. We're all different, so we don't know what's going on. So anyway, I had a headache. I threw up a couple times, and the general weakness I felt for like a few days was like, to me, the most apparent part of it. The day that I had the worst part of my headache and I threw up and such, I slept on off and on that whole day. Then that night I went to bed at like 9 o'clock and didn't wake up until like 10 the next morning. And I still felt like I got like an hour of sleep. And it took me a good 3-4 days to finally get back to normal. And I want to tell you how I finally got back to normal, because I think that sickness wise, I was fine after like day 3. And then it took me day 4 and like another half a day to finally start feeling all right again. And I think maybe a couple times you've seen me like a light cough. It is a dry cough. Who knows? It could just as well be. I'm looking out my window right now, and I'm seeing some buds on the trees and the magnolia. It's getting to be beautiful out, and so it could just be allergies. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm certainly not gonna. I want to test. I want to go out. I need a test. I'm fine. Now, if I start to have major breathing problems where it's a major struggle to breathe, yeah, we might have to reassess. But this is the point that Dr. Fauci and the like have been trying to express, is that if you're not, even if you think you have it, if you're not having major health difficulties, just, I don't want to say grin and bear, but those are the last thing you want to do is go into a hospital setting, because they're, virus or not, hospitals are just the, don't go to hospitals. You want to spend as least amount of time in a hospital as you can, and that's at any point, virus or not. The longer you're in a hospital setting, the worse off you're going to be, especially especially as you get older. So that 4.5-ish day, 4.5-ish, I needed to get out in my lawn and start filming for the In the Lawn series, which has officially started. We'll talk about it at the very end. I got out in my lawn. It was the most beautiful day to date. I mean, it started off chilly in the 40s, but quickly rose up, and everything bad eroded. And why is that? Well, because one, the lawn, as you can probably tell, is my biggest hobby. And getting out of the house and so whether or not you're a lawn enthusiast, there's still so many opportunities to get out of your house. And if you've always wanted a nice lawn, this might be the time to do it, because you can actually invest the time to your lawn right now. It gets you out of the house. It gets you fresh air. You get to be out in nature. You just enjoying the beauty of this season in the midst of what's going on outside this window. And that's what I needed. And it was just an amazing experience. The birds were chirping. Everything is great. So my challenge to you this week is to do something that you enjoy. In recovery, when I was in inpatient, I lived in an inpatient program for 8 months, and we called it a recovery reset. And the thing that was impressed upon the new people that would come into the program is yes, you're trying to pull yourself out of addiction, and there's a myriad of problems that come with that: financial, legal, personal. There's a lot of problems that come with the early days and weeks and months of recovery, much like we're seeing right now in broader society. But you always want to think positively. And much like the recovery reset, you must ask yourself this. When have you ever been dealt the opportunity where I get people have kids, I get there are responsibilities, that we can't just go out doing whatever we want, clearly. But when else are you given the opportunity to completely reset your what you want to do? To go out and do that hobby that you've always wanted to you know what, take up painting. You always want to paint, but you never have the time. There's so many, you see there's memes where people are, well, if I didn't work so much, I could this, or I could, the whole socialist utopia thing, that if we weren't working, we would do more fruitful things. And this will be a great example, I think, at the end of this, if we really truly believe that, because I don't think most people, and this isn't a down on, I just personally believe this. We're all being given the freedom right now to pursue things that we ordinarily don't have time for and make excuses for. And I bet you at the end of this, most people will go back to their work having done nothing with it. So if you always wanted to take up painting, take up painting. If you bought that acoustic guitar and it just sits in your corner because you're so beat down from work every day that you never bust it out, bust it out. If you always wanted a nice lawn, go out in it and use this time to do something. If we're to believe Steve Mnuchin, 10 to 12 weeks, what could you do with that? And this is not an endorsement of the ideas that, well, if we didn't have to work, people would, and when left to their own devices, would pursue more fruitful endeavors. I don't believe that the plurality of people will take advantage of it. That's why I'm bringing this up. Take advantage of this time, folks. Get into your Bible more. You always say you want to get more into the Bible. Now's the time. Take up a hobby or get back into a hobby that you're good at, because we're not built for this. Humans in scary kind of times, we want to be around each other. We have a pack mentality. And unfortunately, in this specific case, we're being told to do the opposite. So it kind of short circuits what our natural premonition is to do. So we're going to wrap this up, but please go do that thing that you've been wanting to do. How many times do you get, just like I was told when I first came into rehab, how many times do you have to completely reset your life? I didn't have to worry about shelter. I didn't have to worry about food. I didn't have to worry about debt collectors. I didn't have to worry about legal stuff, because they can, when you're in a program, they can kind of stave off some of those things until you get your head right. How many times do we have the opportunity to do these things? Don't waste it. Don't waste this opportunity. But maybe this is a pessimistic view, but I think most of us will. I'm sure not. And I'm telling everybody that I can, don't waste this time. But because of free will and because I believe in individuality, do with it what you wish. But don't, at the end of this, come back to, well, if I had more time. You had it. 10 to 12 weeks, if we're to believe Steve Mnuchin. Yeah, I just keep thinking of fix your car. I was a big automotive guy, right? Growing up, when I was younger. And you get so busy that, hobbies have to, I understand hobbies, that's life. They have to take a back seat every now and again. That's life. But I can't wait for the day it's going to rain this whole week, but I got to do a front brake job on my car. And I don't look at that as work. It's a chance to get out and do a hobby that I haven't. Man, I used to have sick cars, and I'm blessed today that I can have a Dodge Charger, but kind of run of the mill. But I used to have really nice cars. And addiction took that away, but it's whatever. Go out and work on your car. Go out and work on your lawn. Get that basement that's been all out of order for all these years. Get that basement in order. Paint your house. Paint some rooms. Home Depot and Lowe's is still open. Be careful. If you're sick, don't go out. Practice the 15 to whatever, the little pamphlet. But man, go out and do it. Don't waste this. But my fear is a lot of people will. One quick note: if you are an automotive fan, I had mentioned that we're going to be going to the Pittsburgh Car Scene's annual kickoff meet. I don't know what's happening with that. It's still probably to be determined. There's obviously more important things going on. But if you are an automotive person, I just want to do a quick shout out for my man Damian Knight. If you like to get into the nitty gritty of the automotive industry, renderings and industry news, my man does it deep. So if you're an automotive person, he's right now talking a lot about what these automotive brands are doing as they're shut up. But he looks at renderings. He's a Corvette guy. If you're a car person, please go check my man out. He's super knowledgeable, been in the game for years and years and years. Everything from building and fabrication to, he's run multi-million-dollar supercar businesses. And now he's got his online platform out of Las Vegas. I really think you'll like it. If you're into the overlanding thing, if you're into Corvettes, or just generally cars and automotive culture in general, give my man a look. I think you'll really enjoy it. I'm going to be shouting out some more folks that certainly have helped me as I go on to try to build this thing bigger and better. I appreciate it. So, again, you can find us anywhere on social media. Search The Pursuit of Growth. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, naturally. I got a Twitter. I'm still learning that. I didn't think Twitter would be so complicated, but I'm kind of having trouble with it. But we're going to work it out. You can look and laugh. Like, comment, and share, man. Let me know. How are you dealing with all this? Let me know. One other thing I want to mention, the In the Lawn series is up and running. The first video was launched showing the Yard Mastery soil sample. You can get out in your yard and figure out exactly what your lawn needs. As soon, I shot all the getting the soil test up into sent in, and then once we get the results, which should be this week because they are still up and running, we'll look at that more in depth and trust me, the In the Lawn series that's where I'm. You can certainly tell I'm more passionate about that stuff. I'll let the editing and the time I put into those videos will probably speak to that. What else? Cut my grass for the first time. Put down pre-emergent, which is super goofy for this time of year here in southwestern Pennsylvania. But I took a lot of grass off when I cut yesterday. So we're gonna leave it here. Again, like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much, everybody, for their support. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you giving me a chance. As I'm still new at this. Geez, a month ago, I was trying to figure out how I would even be able to do this with a 9-year-old MacBook. Now, because of the help of my cousin, thanks, Mark, I'm working off Windows now, and I've got the ability to edit and do things that over time will really bring value to this channel. But I am learning, so thank you for your trust while I get through all this stuff. Just be looking out for the content. Thank you again so much, everybody. This is The Pursuit of Growth.